G'day, guys. Welcome back to the NBA Swordplay podcast. It is our Week 7 preview. We are live. I'm here with the two blokes that actually carry this podcast from week to week. I'll start with the man above me. Vernsy, how's your week been, brother? Happy to be live here.
Oh yeah, I love doing these lives. It's so nice to get the interaction. Comments already absolutely funneling in, and we hadn't even started yet. So love seeing that. Look, good week life wise. Yeah, I don't know, love my life. Things are always going well, it seems. And in regards to NBA, though, unfortunately not the greatest, but we'll get to that.
All right, beautiful, mate. Boz, how has your week been, brother?
Yeah, week's been good. I'm currently very sleep deprived. I've had a wedding in Adelaide that I drove to, so went up Friday morning. It took me about 7.5 hours from Melbourne, and I've just come back today. So two 5:30 departures from each state. So keen for a sleep tonight,
mate. Very, very good. And you've organised the potty for us, mate. You've talked about the discussion points off air with us that we're going to get to on this live. So thank you very much always for your hard work, mate. But we are going to start off with how we scored this round, a positive and a letdown. Talk about the Supercoach Cup. Congratulations to anyone that did progress through to the next round of the Cup. We're going to talk about some injuries, those short-term, those long-term. You know that Boz is always all over that. Bit of a Week 6 recap before we get into the Week 7 preview. We'll take a good look at the schedule. We know how important the schedule is in this game. Talk about some targets, some captains, and then finally our trade thoughts for Week 7. So, as I said, boys, already got some comments here. Now, Boz, oh, no, it's not going over your face this week. That's good, because last week we couldn't see when I put the comments up, Boz. But Shano, 903 with a cat C, not happy after he got 51 in game 1. Oh, that was looking great, wasn't it? The cat call in that first game. When Duran over Cade last week, when I had the dollars for Cade, that one hurts, and I did too, mate. We'll get to that soon. Tatum's Tantrum, great member of the channel here. How are you, mate? 1918. Laurie disappointing. Also went Jalen Johnson, who was just okay. So some comments up there already. We will get to the others very, very soon, but we'll start off with how we went for the week. So, Vernsy, you alluded to it before. You weren't overly happy with how things went this week. Was it an absolute disaster or just okay, mate?
Look, not a disaster. I do think, I was within striking distance, but didn't quite make it, sort of thing. Look, I scored 891, went up 100 places, so sitting just inside the top 2.5K. Honestly, I also really wanted to go Cade as well as Cat. And unfortunately, if I went Cat, I couldn't afford Cade. And I decided to keep Cat and go down to Duran. And then obviously, yeah. So I think I lost some points there, unfortunately. It is what it is. I feel like I'm a little bit behind in my team progression. I think as we sort of have talked about the last few weeks, I keep being a little bit late to these rookies. I was a little bit late to Queen. I only got him last week after he had a great 80 and 100. And of course I filled him for 50. Amazing. But also with Kirkbrenner as well, I was a bit behind on him. So I think me being a little bit slow to get to the rookies, as much as it's giving us the cash in, I'm getting the good rookies, I'm missing those original initial jumps of cash, which we all know the biggest one is the first one. So I'm a little bit behind, I think, in the cash game, which is making it a bit harder.
Yeah, I fear, mate. Particularly with that cat call and Duran, I'm in exactly the same position as you. So I'll jump in now before you do, Boz. I did exactly the same thing. I really wanted to hold on to Cat, but that meant that I had to let go of Cunningham and go with Duran instead. And that hurt because I think Cunningham, when you go down to the most traded in, not in my side, he was clearly the number one there. So that one did hurt, Vernsy. I'm absolutely with you, mate. If it makes you feel a little bit better, I know that there was a message in the Podmasters group. I think the range from the lowest score to the highest score was around 100 points this week. So it was a pretty even round, I think, Vernsy. I got a 904 myself, but very similar story in regards to the Cat and Cunningham call, which was a little bit unfortunate. But Boz, I know that you made a bit of a last-minute call. I wasn't aware of this. SGA not in your team anymore, mate.
Yeah, well, firstly, I probably have to apologise to those that actually watched this because I'm pretty sure I said last week I'm never, ever going to trade SGA from my team. But look, just to give some background on that, it was already one day in. So I actually initially didn't have him traded out. And then the the famous questionable tag came up on Twitter. He had an illness. So I thought, you know what? I haven't used a boost yet. I may as well just boost. And even if he does play, I can probably get someone that may score on par or even better, and maybe even have a better fixture in the short term than Shay. And I chose Luca. It was actually out of Maxi or Luca. And luckily, after the first game, they pretty much scored, I think, high 40s to each. But then over the 4 games, Luca actually did outscore Shay. So I think, the fact that I hadn't used a boost, I was okay doing it. If I was someone who had used 3 or 4 boosts, probably would have been a bit silly to do that. But I thought I'd just kind of try and protect myself as much as possible. So I'm happy to say that I think it has paid off. But I do apologize for going against my word pretty much immediately after we filmed the podcast.
And that was insane. Dude, when I saw his team and I saw you trade in Luca on a 3-game week, oh my goodness. And it gets a 130. Nuts, man. This is why you're top tier. My goodness.
It absolutely is, Verns. I did not see that one coming, and I checked it out and I thought, where is this man here, the old flopper? But nowhere to be seen in the side. So that is elite work, Boz. Now, boys, are we still in the cup? I got lucky this week, so I made it through to the next round. I've progressed. Vernsy, are you still in the running in the NBA Cup?
Definitely got to win this week. Saying that, I've checked out my opponent for next week, and he's a premium up on me. He's currently in top 200, and I'm like, oh, this isn't looking good for me in round 3.
You never know, Boz. You never know. Sorry, Verns. You never know, mate. Boz, how about you? You still in the cup?
Yeah.
Still in the run?
Yeah, still in. So 2 and zip, and I've got another favourable matchup coming into this week. However, it's a lot closer than the last 2. I think the last 2 matchups, I don't think the 2 blokes have actually checked their sides since they've made their teams at the start. So looking forward to playing some competitive style games now.
Very, very nice. It is going to get tougher and tougher to win as we go through the season. Obviously, with, I suppose, those ghost teams exiting the cup pretty early. Now, please remember to join our league. We do have an open league, which will be open for maybe another week or 2. Vernsy, do you have the code on you, my friend? Because whenever I go to announce this, I realize that I didn't actually make up the league. You're the great man who made it. So do you have the code for everyone that's watching at the moment, mate?
I definitely do. It is 779588. So 229 people in there. Actually, really good size there. And most of them are beating me. So congrats to all of you. Just quickly on that cup. I mean, clearly Boz had a good, qualification round. I played on hard mode and had a bad one, so I have to play the hardest guys first. Yeah, it's just how I play.
Stuff. But the good thing is you've got through that, Verns, and you are still in the running, mate. So very nice work for you, mate. Now, we do have a heap of comments here. So Shano is going Duran, Rollins, and Bazulis to Giddy, Franz, and Watson. Tatum's, I've honestly got no idea this week. Want to do something with Bazulis, though, also. So a couple of Bazulises out. We've got the Discord GS68 ranked top 1,000. Let's go. Very, very nice.
I think Disco Dags is what we got there.
Oh, Disco. Verns, you should be running this thing, mate, and I'll just sit back and say nothing. Thank you. Sorry, Disco Dags, but congratulations, mate. We'll get to this Tatum soon, so we'll take a look at some of the rookies that are coming up very, very soon, mate. G'day, FPL. Good to see you, mate. James is happy there. Good on you, mate. Knappel is on the double game, and then UG. So that's another talking point that we might get to as well. Matty Granger, sup, boys. Nice one, mate. And we'll go with James this last time before we get into the next part of it. My trade for this week, Nembard, quickly Okoro for Fears, Reeves, and KPJ. So very nice, James. We'll go through some trade options a little bit later on in the live, mate. But what we're going to get to now, it's unfortunate. We don't want to talk about this, but it's a part of the game. The injuries. We've got some short-term and some long-term here. A few names on the list, 8 in total. Boz, take us through the injuries for round 7, my friend.
Of course. So the left-hand side is a bit more of your longer term, and the right-hand side for those watching is more of your short term. So at the moment, we have Jared Allen. He had this finger issue that's been popping up for the last couple of ball games, and he's been kind of playing, then resting, and they've just officially come out and said he needs some time to rest that. So he's out for a week. Cabs do go into a 4-game week he actually has been scoring pretty good. But unfortunately, you won't be picking Jared Allen this week. Isaiah Hartenstein, he's been announced he's going to be out for at least 10 to 14 days. Personally, he was playing really well, so I don't think many people did have him. However, I guess that just opens up now more time, more production for Chet Holmgren if you wanted to go a bit potty with him. Although OKC's immediate fixture is not great, so I don't think we're going to be targeting OKC players anytime soon. Trey Murphy III, he's been very annoying for owners because the Pelicans have that really, really nice run. And he's been playing pretty much all their games this season. And then out of nowhere, he's missed the last two with an elbow injury. So, look, you're going to have to keep kind of tabs on the injury reports to see if he's back for their next game because they still have a great fixture, the Pelicans. But I can see already a few very frustrated owners in the comment section being like, who am I going to trade Trey Murphy III to? So, yeah, I don't blame you if you are moving him on because he would have kind of hurt you this week. Banchero is just still out with his groin. It's just we haven't had any improvements. There's no real time frame from Orlando Magic. They also aren't giving us a doubtful or a questionable tag. It's just out. So that to me seems like you probably can't trust him until you do see that kind of questionable or probable tag on the injuries there. So he's someone that you wouldn't be looking at for Orlando. Now, I've put in Jokic, Giannis, and Duran just because they're all probable, but they're popping up on the injury report, which kind of means that there's something lingering. So for Jokic, it's a wrist. It's come up in the past. Sorry, I think it was a couple of weeks ago he got this tag as well. As I spoke about it then, it's a non-shooting hand, so that shouldn't really worry him too much. But he's probable, so he probably should play. Giannis, this is interesting. He has a probable tag, so it says he's probably going to play, but the reason was injury management. So we know he's just come back from a groin. And the fact that that's the tag they're giving him kind of scares me that maybe potentially down the line there's going to be a rest day for Giannis. And Duran, spewing for you boys that brought him in and unfortunately kind of had that, not only a pretty poor week from Duran, to be honest, like his free throw and field goal wasn't great and a few turnovers, but missing that last game where he could have probably ended up on 100, which you're kind of going to take that in a 4-game week. That 70, 72 or whatever he scored, it just doesn't look great, doesn't it? But he probably should be good to go again because he's now probable. So that could have just been a cheeky rest day that you are unlucky to kind of cop. And then Clingham, I only put him on the injury list because he missed today's game, but the Blazers do go into some really nice runs now. I know they got a 4-2 and then it's like a 4-4-4-4-4 moving forward. So he was someone we spoke about last week, Verns, in saying that he's really upped his game and he's really, really efficient. And that's what makes him a good Supercoach scorer. So if you were thinking about maybe going potty with Clingham, just be careful because he is under an illness cloud.
Big question is, for the people looking at the Joker there on the screen, how concerned should we be here, Boz? Are we still? There's no way on earth we're trading him yet. No way on earth.
No. Unless something tomorrow, because they do play tomorrow, so that's the handy thing that we kind of get to see him playing the first day of the week. So we're kind of still we'll be limited in our options, but we won't be kind of completely limited in the sense that every team will have played. But no, I think Jokic plays. He has 4 games this week and there's no back-to-back. So there's a rest day in between all of those. And he obviously had 3 days off in a row prior to his last ball game with the Thanksgiving that the whole league misses and a couple of days off before that. So I think Jokic is okay, obviously, unless he gets ruled out. So, no, we're not trading him and we're probably locking the C on him, let's be honest.
Beautiful, mate. Beautiful. I think that's music to most coaches' ears. And Vernsy, you're obviously an owner now. It's nothing to worry about with the Joker anymore, mate. He's locked in, he's loaded and ready to go for you, Vernsy.
Of course. And look, he did have that sort of lingering wrist injury in their second game. Like he was holding it in their second game and he still went on and played it. The third game was still great. So I wouldn't be stressed at all about that.
Beautiful. All right, boys, let's look at some of the top performers of the week. So we'll get the Supercoach screen up. I'll try to actually make that a little bit bigger. We want week 6 points, don't we? All right, So we've got 2 equal highs here, Anthony Edwards and Joshy Hart. Now, I must admit, I was close to looking at Edwards, particularly with that Minnesota schedule, but didn't go there in the end. But 136 points for Edwards and then 136 points for Hart. Vernsy, Anthony Edwards, fantastic week from him score-wise.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, look, Ant definitely has the ability to do this. He's just been a bit injury prone and a bit in and out this season. He's had a few floor games which have been really bad as well. His floor seems quite low, but obviously, if he pulls it all together for 4 games, he's super impressive. Honestly, one of the guys I was looking at if I didn't decide to go Duran, but yeah, can't look at the probablys. But when I look at the top, 3 right there, all of those, well, not really hard, really just Cunningham and Edwards, very highly owned and very punishing not owning this week, unfortunately.
Absolutely. Joshy Hart, Boz, is there any interest here whatsoever?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the schedule was favourable. You'd be daring to do so. He was a very good player last year. They kind of went away from starting him at the start of the season, but with injuries to OG Anunoby and even Mitch Robinson, who they were starting at centre, doesn't really play as much. They've kind of not even starting him. They're starting McBride, so he's another kind of shooting guard, point guard type, but he comes off the bench as a 6th man and pretty much closes every game. He's a great assist player. He's a great rebounder for his size. He can score the ball. He's a great defender, so he gets steals. He has a really nicely rounded Supercoach game. So, I mean, 136 in 4 games. He's done better than Brunson. He's done better than Cat. So, if he's someone that you enjoy watching, or if he's like someone that you might think can be a good pod moving forward, I'm not going to kind of deter people from picking him because the proof's in the pudding there. When he does get the opportunity, he can put up some big scores.
And look at the consistency there in the last 3 games with his Supercoach points, 36, 36, and 37. So that is the ultimate consistency over the last 3 there for the great man. Now, Cade Cunningham, Boz, you obviously brought him in, did you, mate? Unlike Verns and myself.
Yeah, brought Cade in. I split. I was honestly torn between Duran and Cade, but the fact that I really liked Cat going into this week just made it easy for me because I was only kind of working with the one power forward center spot. So, yeah, not to say that I was not going to bring Cade in and I fell into a bit of luck there, but I just thought he had probably the highest ceiling because he puts up numbers across the board compared to Duran, who's more of an efficient player. I just wanted to kind of not put all my eggs in one team's basket just in case something like an injury was going to occur. Not that I think there was actually an injury. I think it was just a planned rest that those owners got unlucky with. But I guess I just kind of picked the right one, unfortunately.
Very, very nice, mate. Now, Boz, I'm going to lead you into the next 2 here because unbelievably, as you were talking about before, you brought this man in a 3-game week and he finished just 6 points behind the top scorer. What's going on here, Boz? What was the method behind the madness? And are you recommending for other people to bring Luca in like you?
Well, the methods of the madness, my hands were kind of forced, to be honest. Because the OKC didn't play to the second day, most teams had already played on that first Tuesday. So for me, really, it only came down to Maxi or Luca, who both had 3-game weeks. And I just kind of looked at who do I trust more, I guess, not long-term, but in the next couple of weeks, because the Lakers do have a 4-game this week, but then it goes into a 2 and a 3. So I don't think I want to be holding Luca for too much longer. I think he'll definitely be a stepping stone after this week, to get me to someone a bit favorable in the schedule moving forward. But look, it was just one of those gut feelings where I thought, if Shea was to miss that game, I would be spewing because he'd only be playing 2 games in the week. Maxi actually, he was probable, but he had an injury tag. So I thought, what are the odds that maybe there is a niggling injury to Maxi? I think it was a shoulder or something like that. He ended up playing all the games in the week. But I kind of just, try to play it as safe as possible by going Luca. They had a couple NBA Cup games they needed to win to qualify. So I'm like, Luca's going to play bulk minutes in the week. And I just kind of backed him in under those kind of premises. And it obviously, it did pay off. And I'm hoping he plays all 4 games coming up this week because they are on a back-to-back. So they are playing straight away tomorrow, and they've just come off a decent win over the Pelicans today. So if Luka can play all 4 for me this week, I think it'll be a big tick in the box there for the boost that I used.
Very nice, mate. 49, 41, and 40. Unbelievable. Vernsy, how about his teammate in Austin Reeves? So pretty impressive week from that man, and he's just getting better and better, isn't he?
Oh, look, definitely. I mean, obviously they had sort of the crosstown rivalry matchup with Clippers, which most players are going to show up for. I feel like that's a game that you got to win. Got to be the king of LA, and then the New Orleans game is a pretty easy beat. Dallas haven't been good either, and they needed wins. Did Dallas end up getting this win actually? No, they didn't. They won, I think, today, but they didn't beat LA. But yeah, I guess a pretty easy schedule for them. And look, Austin, he's shown it in the past. He's clearly really, really good. We thought with LeBron coming back, it might eat into some of his scoring, but yeah, not at all. He's just absolutely crushing it out there.
Beautiful, mate. Any thoughts on Keegan Murray? 122 points for the week.
Me personally, I got no clue. Boz?
Yeah, I can speak to Keegan. So missed the first 5 weeks of the season with an injury to his thumb. Look, he's probably the only kind of good young player on Sacramento. They're a bit of a basket case at the moment. Sabonis, we know, is out for 3 to 4 weeks, or maybe at least 2 to 3 now that the week's gone. Levine's not gelling well. They want to get rid of him. They've got Schroeder and Westbrook, all these old, just beaten up blokes that aren't very good, in my opinion. So, when this guy came back, a lot of the fantasy analysts that I listened to as well were just like, this guy's going to come out so red hot. And boy, did he ever. He averaged 40 minutes, which is a bit of a concern over the 4 games. I don't think he's a 40-minute type player. But, what got him these scores, because he averaged 20 points. And it wasn't like he averaged 30 points. All he did was average 20 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists. He had 2.5 steals, nearly 2 blocks. So is that a bit unsustainable? Averaging around 5 defensive stats a week. He also had shot at 47.5%, which is something he does. He's a very good field goal player. Shot 80% from the free throw line. So again, he's not killing you in these missed kind of categories. Like a Luka Doncic, for example, today lost 13 points purely on missed shots. And then here's the one thing, boys. He did not commit a single turnover in 4 games. So he's a very efficient player. Now, not to say that he's never going to commit a turnover, because he will. But I think over his season last year, he was only like a 1 turnover per game kind of guy, because he doesn't really need the ball in his hands to produce. He's more of that spot-up shooter that rebounds and plays defense really well. So, look, Sacktown are going to flog him like a dead horse, because he's the only kind of youthful player that can actually give him a bit. So, if Sacramento end up having a good fixture, which I can't even remember what their fixture looks like, but if I quickly have a look,
they've
only got
a bad fixture.
Yeah, they got like a 3-game and a 2-game. So you're probably not picking him now. However, in a couple of weeks' time, if their fixture does turn, he's going to be a really solid player purely because of that high efficiency, low turnover style game that he plays.
Very nice, mate. And Shano says Reeves is a good shout. Worried Luka misses the Toronto game. So we'll have to see there. But speaking about Toronto, Vernsy, I am a Scotty Barnes owner. Do you own the man yourself?
Yes, I do. And I'm so glad I do. He's been obviously quite good over this really good run. His run sort of comes to an end after round 8. He just had that really good fixture till now. With this, he's a little bit inconsistent. Like he can obviously come out and have some good games here. And I'm pretty sure that 44 against Charlotte, they actually lost to Charlotte in overtime. And he was I'm pretty sure he was close to 40 points before OT even hit, if you're not already on it. Like, he didn't really do anything in that game with, at the end, which I found ludicrous. Like, I really thought they would have been going towards their best player to end the game, and I feel like they just didn't. I feel like he sort of was just doing a lot of utility stuff. He was hitting a corner. He was letting other guys take shots, and I'm guessing more or less that's probably where his lower games come from, when he plays that bit more of a utility role. But when he wants to score, there were so many times he just went to the rack and he's just too big and strong for the defenders and just easily got like a 2-point bucket. So obviously I'd love to see more of that out of him, but you're definitely not disappointed with this score you got. Overall, pretty solid.
That's right. And I think Boz said before that if you're getting over 100 in these weeks, then usually you're not complaining too much. The Nicholas of the world are a bit of a different beast. But, yeah, I'm really happy with that score from Scotty this week. Zach, Boz, any thoughts here or any thoughts on anyone else? We might just sort of open things up at this stage of the list. Anyone else that you really wanted to touch on in regards to the best performers of the week, mate?
Not in particular, but yeah, just quickly on Zach Edey. He's obviously finding himself at Memphis in a time where Ja Morant's out, where Jaren Jackson Jr., to be honest, has had a really poor start to the season. He's been a very, very big disappointment. And Edie's just come back from an injury and just said, well, I'm young. I want to play. I've been missing basketball and I'm pretty much going to shoot nearly 1,000% because he is just putting everything in the basket and doing it at such high efficiency that it doesn't matter that he's only averaging 14 points. But the fact that he's putting not 1,000%, but he's putting 72% of those in the ring whilst only committing 2 turnovers, but also having 2.5 blocks and 13 rebounds a game. He's just like a Jalen Duran, to be honest, where he's just so efficient that he will find himself getting some high Supercoach rounds because of that efficiency and the blocks. So, look, Memphis, I think another team that goes into a pretty poor schedule. If only he kind of came back from injury a week or two before, because he would have been a really nice kind of low price pick for us to pick up on. But I wouldn't be targeting him now. But again, another one of those guys that when Memphis does flip into a good fixture, if you're looking for a pod, he'd be one that could potentially go off. In saying that, though, like 115 in 4 games where he's pretty much played out of his skin, like 13 rebounds, 2.5 blocks, like 72% from the field. What's the bet that the week you trade him in, he actually shoots 65% from the field and only has 2 blocks and turns the ball over 3 times instead of 2. And that's when you'll get disappointed because he'll put out an 85-90, not a 115. So I don't think he's that high premium type scorer that we're used to in that position, like a Jokic and a Giannis, etc.
Yeah, nice info, mate. Vernsy, anything else you want to touch on in regards to the top performers of the week before we get to the money makers?
No, I think pretty good overall, pretty predictable. A lot of 4-game week players and the absolute jets that were on the 3-game week. So, yeah.
Beautiful, mate. All right, so we'll go to the top of the break evens here. And remember, something that's really important to take into account with your break evens is the schedule. So how many games are they playing for that week? So generally the 2-game players, you'll see a bit of a lower break even as compared to the 3 and the 4 as well. So that's something to always keep in mind with the break evens. Make sure that you actually do check out the schedule. But Boz, I'm going to throw this to you, mate. Where do you want to start in regards to the money makers this week?
Well, I think we can pretty much rule out 2, 3, and 5. So McGowan, Howard, and Peavy, I don't think they get enough. However, Peavy maybe. I think he still has a bit of a bench role at New Orleans because he is a rookie. They're trying to kind of blood the youth, and obviously he's going to benefit when Zion Williamson takes a rest every couple of ball games because of his injury management load. So out of those 3 guys, Peavy's probably the one that you can maybe go for because he is still that really, really kind of low basement price. However, the ones I like on this list, and there's no kind of secret as to why our thumbnail is Jay Huff, but he's somewhat maybe taken over the center starting position for Indiana. Now, I know he's a bit more of a premium price at $6.5 million, but it looks like over the last week and a half that he's taken over the starting position from Isaiah Jackson, although they are still sharing it. So the one thing with Huff is he's only playing 24 minutes. It's not like we're seeing him getting rolled out there for 30 minutes. If he was getting rolled out there for 30 minutes, he's the biggest no-brainer known to man. But I still think for the rookies that we have on offer this week, he's the one you need to go for. I mean, Indiana go into another 4-game week. He's got that starting spot. He shoots quite well. He doesn't really rebound as much as you'd think for a center. He's a tall dude, but he only averaged this week 6 rebounds. But it's still kind of allowed him to score well because of that high efficiency. He averaged 3 and a bit blocks. I don't think he can get to 3 and a bit all the time. However, he is traditionally still a 2 block player per game. So I think he's the one that you probably should be targeting, in my opinion. Just because of the 4 game, you can probably confidently put him on the court. Because of that flex position, if for whatever reason Indiana decide to swap back to Isaiah Jackson and Huff goes back to playing 15 minutes, well then you're just hoping that he's the one that kind of drops out of your score there. But I just think, yeah, he's the one that I trust the most. And then the second one would be Jalen Wells for Memphis. He was someone that a lot of people would have had in their side at the start of the season, thinking that he's going to start at shooting guard and put up some good numbers. He had a really stinky start. If you look at those scores there, he didn't do much. His shot wasn't falling. But if you scroll down, DR, you'll see that, yeah, since probably the back end of maybe last round, the consistency is starting to kind of creep up a little bit. The minutes are going up. The points are improving. He doesn't do a whole lot else. Like he is just pretty much a good scorer. He's put up 18 points this week with 4 rebounds, a little under 2 assists, under a steal. Good thing for him is, though, he's really good at free throws, so 90% free throw shooter, and also very low turnovers because he's not the one actually ball handling. He's the one receiving the ball to shoot. So a bit like that Keegan Murray. So for me, Huff and Jalen Wells are probably that kind of more premium rookie option that you should be kind of trusting ahead of maybe a Peavy or a Howard or a McGowan's, as it looks like are listed there.
Would you be happy fielding either? We obviously can't. Well, most of us have got Nicola. Would you be happy going to maybe the flex to look at someone like a Huff on field, Boz, or purely just for the money on the bench, mate?
No, I'd be happy to field Huff. I think the ceiling's there. If he's going to be able to average, let's say, 3 blocks a game and on that good efficiency, he can easily get a 65-70 over 4 games, which is what you want from a person priced at that mark. Wells, however, I wouldn't be getting him in to put him on the field or court, whatever you want to call it, because Memphis only played 3 games this week. I think the boat for playing the Memphis boys is over on the court, the rookie options, like a Coward as well, if you still have him. I bought in Vince Williams Jr. because Morant was out this week and he was okay. Can't shoot to save himself, but that's okay. But yeah, I'm looking to move these guys onto my bench now to make that money as opposed to putting them on the field.
Nice, mate. Vernsy, is there anyone else that interests you in regards to the money makers this week, mate? Or Simi, you're looking at those couple of options there. Is there anyone else that's sort of floating your boat at the moment?
Honestly, no. Like that's something I really needed to look to hear from Boz to see if there was any other options. Personally, Huff, obviously, I think pretty no-brainer for most people. Wells is someone I started, so I was also looking at those guys. But once again, this is me bringing in elevated rookies, which really sucks. You know, you really want to find those rookies at a basement price, put more money in your kitty, and be able to use it a little bit later. So it sucks we didn't really have those options. I think Bay, from Pelicans obviously went mental this week. 113? Really, really good from him this week. And I think, as you know, you touched on earlier, Boz, when Zion's out, he's going to get the opportunity, but he's already close to 8 mil himself. So it's not even like a downgrade. Like if you're moving a Jenkins to him, you're putting 2 million on top of him, sort of thing. So it's really hard actually with these rookies.
Yeah,
sorry, go Boz.
No, I was just going to say, I was just going to talk about that comment that just popped up with the Bay comment. I just think that Zion missed a couple this week, and that really helped him. Whereas looking at their schedule, they play the 4 games this week, and they're all with a rest break in between. So I do expect Zion to play at least 3. However, I do think that limits Peavy a lot more than it limits Bay. I think Bay would be the first one off the bench. But to be honest, if Trey Murphy misses and Zion misses, well then, yeah, that's Sadiq Bay's kind of small forward, power forward position to be in. I think that's why we saw a big score from him this week.
Shano's asking about Barlow. So any thoughts on Dominic Barlow with a break-even of 7 going into the week?
Oh, if we knew that Embiid was going to miss, yes, but Embiid came back today. So he's been out for the last 5 or 6 games, I think, over the last week and a half. And then he's finally come back today, Embiid. So for me, I think Barlow did quite well this week, but most of that was without Embiid. And also Andre Drummond went down in one of those games where he helped out. Now, he's more of a small forward type Barlow, but when they do have the Drummond and the Embiid, they're happy to kind of play a little bit smaller. I don't really tend to use Barlow as much. So I personally don't trust him. But at 5.6 mil, I guess it could be someone you look to get in instead of Huff and save $1 million if you're really desperate for money.
Beautiful, boys. Beautiful. All right. Well, I reckon we should look ahead now to this week's schedule. Always super, super important. Now, apologies, everyone, for a bit of the bodgy arrows there. They don't quite line up. What I'm going to do next week is I'm trying to get the colourful bit to match up with the team. So I will endeavour to do that next week. But, boys, as always, the schedule is huge, huge, huge with this game. So if we take a look down here, lots of 4-game weeks. So we obviously got Memphis there on the 3, along with OKC for Shea owners. We've got Phoenix on the 3, as well as Sacramento. But it's more than just this week. We need to be looking ahead into the future. Boz, what's really catching your eye with the schedule? Where did you want to start with the schedule this week, mate?
Well, yeah, the schedule is a tricky one because I was looking today and I'm thinking, the optimal fixture going forward over, let's say, the next 3 weeks is a 4-3-4, and not one team has that. So not one team can we kind of say is the prime team to target. And as you said, there's pretty much nearly 90% of the league playing 4 games this week. So it really does come down to week 8. That week 8 where there's a week off in Supercoach because of the NBA Cup. So then the teams kind of get a couple of extra days off because they're not really sure on what teams play in the NBA Cup. Obviously, they do know now, but when they released the schedule, they didn't. So it's a tricky one in the sense of, are you going to get a guy in on a 4 that goes straight into a 2 next week? Or do you have too many of those guys already in your team? So if I look at my team, for example, I have so many guys that are going to go from a 4 game this week straight into a 2. So I'm thinking to myself, am I now pigeonholing myself if I'm doing that again? Will I really, really struggle in week 8 if I've got all these guys on the 2? The saving grace is most of the guys that have the 2 then either go into a 4, the following week, which then will make up on most of the guys that have 3s in week 8, because most of the guys that have 3s in week 8 continue to have 3s in week 9. So I think over the next 3 weeks, regardless of who you get, minus a few teams, you're pretty much getting 10 games out of that player, barring injury and rest and things like that. So I don't think it really matters whether you get someone who's going 4-2-4 or 4-3-3. So you probably can expect at least 1 down week in week 8 or 9, but just know that over the 3 weeks, that player is still playing the same amount of games as most of the other players that are playing. So I personally am looking at it a bit futuristic, a bit like in a 3-week block, and saying, I'm just going to get the best person I can afford. I don't really care if they have a 2 next week, or I'm not really going to even think about whether they have a 3 next week or a 2, just because over the 3 weeks, it'll be the same amount of games played. I hope that makes sense, and I've gone in circles there, but that's my thoughts on the schedule.
Absolutely. So basically what you're saying is, mate, if you look over this 3-week period, it's pretty even. There's no single team that really stands out, because the perfect run, as we can see there, just doesn't exist. So it makes perfect sense for me. Vernsy, what's sticking out for you schedule-wise, brother?
Mate, I love the schedule. Because of the diversity it allows us to have. As Boz sort of mentioned, if anyone's seen my video that's out already, my comment is that the fixture gets me giddy, because it's just, it's so nice. As you sort of mentioned, like over that 3-game week, you're either hitting a 4-2-4 or a 4-3-3. There's no team with that 4-3-4. So either as I said, you're sacrificing 1 week. It means you can just go so many teams, so many options, so much diversity. This week you can look at your favorite players or the best players, and you can bring them in. Excluding things like Brooklyn, who have a kind of a double, which is really terrible. Sacramento, which have 3-3-3. Now, excluding those few exceptions, most of the teams are open to be picked. Most of the players are available to be picked. It's awesome this week. So I really love it. I think with week 8, you don't want to overload it. So I feel like you don't want to have any more than 5 premiums on that week. I would say 4 is probably the number you're looking for. So then around 9, you can maybe rebound those into, players on the 4-game week. If you end up with 1 or 2 on a 3-game week, it's not a big deal. But yeah, obviously can't overload yourself for each of those weeks. It's going to be super hard for the Supercoach Cup, because I think it's going to come down to a little bit of luck here, because you're going to find someone that maybe plays purely for week 8, or you end up in a matchup where someone's played purely for week 9, and obviously you're trying to split them the best you can, and you could just end up a bit unlucky.
Yeah, it's a good point, Boz. I know that you haven't used many boosts. Now, part of my strategy, and I was listening to you earlier on the year, is to try to keep boosts. So it's hurt me a little bit. I was going to trade out Janath before he got injured. Things happen, but I've only used 1 boost, so I've still got all the others up my sleeve. Do you think within this next 3-week period, for those people maybe with an extra boost up their sleeve, it would be a good time to use it to take advantage of someone with a better schedule, maybe just that extra 1-week play type thing? Or are you still going to conserve them for a little bit later in the season? Well, what do you think, mate? Is it worth using one of those boosts, particularly for those that still have some up the sleeve in the next 3?
I think, for example, if you look here, if you're someone that has, for whatever reason, and it's okay if you do, I'm not trying to be mean here, but like a lot of Sacramento or Phoenix or OKC or Memphis players that all go into a 3-game week this week, I think that'd be a really smart choice to use a boost just to get a lot of those teams off your radar for the short term. However, as we said, because so many of these teams have the same amount of games over the 3-week block, I'd be looking to kind of save the boost until round 10. So going into week 10, we have so many teams going into 3-4 weeks straight or 4-game weeks, and they're the teams you want to be loading up on. So me personally, I'm going to do my best to hold off on using another boost. Obviously, if injuries happen and things we can't kind of foresee occur, I'll have to use one. But for example, like a Charlotte or a Chicago who do have a 4-3-3 or a 4-2-3, you're not touching them in those weeks. I mean, Chicago, you can argue, but like as of week 10, like Josh Giddey's going to be in so many people's teams because he goes 4-4-4, 3-4-5, it looks like, for Chicago. So I'm pretty happy to just hold off for the next 3 weeks. Just understand that in one of those 3 weeks, I reckon I'll be going down the rankings, maybe considerably. If I'm not, especially in that week 8, it looks like for me, I'll probably see a big red arrow. But then just hope that by round 10, I'm so primed with players and I'm so primed with boosts that I can just really attack this kind of middle part of the fixture or the schedule to kind of claw my way back. So that's how I'm looking at things. But again, there's no real right and wrong time to not use your boost, in my opinion. I mean, everyone's different. I know people that have used all 5. I know our good man DVG, who won the NBL comp a couple of years back, his strategy when he won the NBL was just to, in the first 5 weeks, use all my boosts, get so far ahead that it's pretty much impossible for those to claw him back. I think he's used, at least 4 out of the 5 from what I've seen on Twitter. And I think he's already kind of seen the positives in that. But I guess with such a long season ahead, who knows if that's going to kind of backfire. But yeah, I'm such a fence sitter when it comes to these things, but at least you've worked out my strategy, which will be to kind of hold them until week 10. I'll leave you with that.
Nice, mate. Now, Godzillasaurus says December 10 to 17, 2025, week break. Week break for NBA Cup in-season competition finals. Matches played between December 10 to 17 are not included in the game for those non-believers. I'm not really across that sort of stuff. So Godzilla, thank you very, very much for that, mate. Says, week 8 is a break. Go for players going 4-4. And that is what Smooth Criminal is looking to do as well. All right, boys, is there anything else we need to touch on schedule-wise before we look for some potential premiums to target this week?
I think we've done a good job.
Yeah, I think just really quickly, sorry, just on that comment, I think that comment was saying that in week 8, that is when the NBA Cup is scheduled. That is, I don't think that's correct. So I think in week 8, like what Arson Dragon has done here is in week 8, that is when Supercoach does return. So I do believe that what you're seeing here on the visual in under week 8 is actual games that will count towards our Supercoach score. Just pretend that there's a week 7.5 in between those two where there's no Supercoach at all. I think.
Yeah. So we did look at it earlier. I'm just going to quickly bring it up real quick. Of course, I say quickly, and then you just watch your screen load indefinitely. We do have the Tuesday this week, but then it doesn't return, and like Supercoach doesn't return officially until the following Thursday. So you'll end up with a 9-day break on the actual Supercoach. Any games that are played in between that time for the Cup don't count towards Supercoach.
Yeah. Beautiful. And then once it does restart Verns, are we right in saying that is then week 8?
Yeah, exactly. So the Thursday to the Wednesday, that's why teams only have 2 or 3 games because it's much less days.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And shout out to you, Global, as well, mate. Always a pleasure to have you in. Boys, just very quickly, I just saw a question from Aaron here. Is it worth trading Flag or Rollins type if it gets us Reeves? Boz, your thoughts on that? Flag out to Rollins type, Rollins out up to a Reeves?
I'll be honest. Playing Cooper Flag's a little bit of roulette at the moment. Like he's so good, and he's shown us some weeks how good his scoring potential is. Like this week, I benched him, and he outscored the 2 guys I had in the same position in the Memphis boys that I played. But yeah, he goes into a 4-game week. and it's Cooper Flag and he's confident and they've got AD back. So maybe that actually helps him because there's more focus on that. So I think for me, Flag, you definitely keep because he's still going to make some money. Rollins, because I don't own him, I'm fully aware of how good he's been, and he's kind of killed me in a way because some people have been able to get away with having him on the court. However, I'm not sure what his break-even is. I think that for me could be a break-even game there. However, again, Milwaukee have a 4-game week. So I would see no issue with playing him. However, Kevin Porter Jr. has come back. Also, however, they've started both of them together. So I think Rollins is no kind of risk of having his role diminish. It's just a matter of where his break-even's at. And I can see Verns chomping at the bit to add something. So
look, I own
Vernsy.
Rollins. I own him, and like he has obviously been fantastic. Someone I've had on field, and someone that, as I mentioned, a lot of things haven't been going right, but having a rookie scoring well on field is so important. I feel like this should be a similar thing to what we do in AFL. The good rookies you want to hold on to us for as long as possible. The guys that you can actually field that score competent points that you can rely on week in, week out. You don't want to be trading those guys early. That's when you get absolutely punished, in my opinion. So I feel like you should definitely be holding on to Rollins. He's got a 69 break even. He just got a 70 on a 3-game week. So I think he's going to beat that 69. Worst case scenario, if he was to match his break even, I'd still be very happy with a 70 from my rookie on field. So I understand that. Yes, it's going to a premium, which feels great. But as you sort of mentioned, it's Reeves who goes into a really poor schedule. He's one of those guys that goes into as we can see it here, LA go 4-2-3-3-3. It's actually a very poor schedule. And I don't know if I want to be making that kind of play for Reeves when you could maybe just trade a rookie 2-3 mil cheaper, bring in a premium a little bit cheaper, maybe get a Harton if you want. I mean, New York have a decent fixture right now. There's other guys you can target and keep those rookies, which I think would be a better play.
Beautiful, mate. And last one before we get into the next part, Causa, the ladies' man Blackledge, who was the best replacement for Trey Murphy, was his killer in Mathurin as well. We are going to talk about some of the trading targets, but anyone tickle your fancy straight away when you look at the question, boys, from the ladies' man Causa Blackledge?
Well, I think it's a small forward position we're talking here. So Denny Advia, he put up a monster triple-double today. He continues to impress. I traded him out, but I think I'm going to get him straight back in. I just love the way he plays. I've actually found myself watching probably Portland the most this year purely because of owning him. If you can get up to a Jalen Johnson, so another one of my guys that I don't own, but you know how much I love him. He's just playing out of his skin at the moment. They do go into 5 games in 7 days, and I'll forever be scared about that man being rested. So that could be a bit of a just buyers beware. And to answer that second part with Mathurin, I'm not trying to say I warned people last week, but, Mathurin he puts up a lot of points, but it can be on some terrible percentages. And I think that's what owners found out this week, where I don't think he shot over 40% from the field, and that really hurt his score. And in 4 games, I think he averaged 11 points per game because, I felt really bad for those that brought Mathurin in. I just didn't trust him.
Yeah, I'll just quickly jump into the Trey Murph one just because the ladies' man himself has already mentioned that he has Denny, Johnson, and Flag. So,
sorry,
he's not going to be able to do those guys. With that, you've got Sengun, Houston coming to a good fixture. It depends on the money, I guess, you have, because are you looking to go up? Do you have an extra 3-4 million to go up to like a top tier premium, or you need to do an exact sideways? If you're doing a sideways, then obviously Hart had a good game, and Hart's already dropped 1.7 million. That might seem like a negative to some people to see that he's lost that much money, but then he came out this week, showed why he was worth that amount of money to start with. And you sort of, as you mentioned, he could turn it around from here. So you could move to someone like a Hart if you're trying to target a guy on a 4-3.
Beautiful, Vernsy. Well, boys, let's start talking about some of the targets for this week. Those primos on good runs. We'll quickly touch on some of the mid prices. We've already looked at some of the rookies that we can get in this week. But Boz, who are we really looking at in regards to our premiums to trade in this week?
There are so many, and It pretty much can be. As we said with the schedule, don't go picking a Brooklyn player, don't go picking a Sacramento player because the schedule's bad. But anyone that has a 4-2-4 or a 4-3-3 that you don't own that you would like maybe to watch on League Pass, or if you'd like to just kind of own someone that you haven't owned yet this season, or if you want to go for a player that you've missed, like this is the week where you can pretty much go anywhere you would like. And I'm not going to sit here and be like, for example, James Harden is 100% going to score better than Anthony. I can't sit here and do that because I don't know. So what I'm going to say is, if you don't have Jokic, you got to get Jokic.
Yes.
If you want to be a bit sneaky, I know for a fact a lot of people would have traded Giannis out. And if you're confident that he'll play all 4 games, he'd be a really good kind of pick to get into that premium price. But look, you can't go wrong. If you want to chase money, look for a premium that's got a lowish break even. That's going to also not only score you big points, but make you money. Like you can go about this in so many different ways. And that's why I kind of, on our rundown sheet for the viewers at home, each week I usually put in like the top 10 kind of options. But this week I left it completely blank because the options are plenty. And it's just going to come down to kind of what you can afford and who you want to kind of have in your side for the week. So do your research, look at your averages, go through some game logs and see how players are performing. Look at their kind of the detailed stats in terms of their field goal, their free throws. Like do a bit of actual research and then I guess just pick based on your gut after that. That's what I'd recommend.
Love it. Can I ask a question myself here? Now, this is someone that I know is pretty close to your heart, Boz. Someone that I haven't owned this week and someone that's going into a 4-3. It's Jalen Johnson. What are your thoughts about bringing in Jalen Johnson for the next couple of weeks, mate?
Yeah, so Jalen Johnson, as we all know, he's absolutely just killed me ever since I traded him out. I finally got a little bit of revenge. He had a really poor second game this week, or first game, sorry, where he just turned the ball over, shot terribly, and I was licking my lips. But then in 2 games, he made up, I think, 80 points or something, even more, 85 points to get himself back to a pretty respectable 98 over 3-game score. And even this morning, just seeing that game go to overtime killed me because he was only on like 27 actual points, and then he ended up getting a career high in overtime, double overtime. So, look, not a lot of things have gone my way with Jalen Johnson, but I'm super happy for him as a player that he's getting all the respect that he deserves. He's breaking out. He's doing so much without Trae Young. Look, DR, the only thing I'll say to you, and I mentioned it just briefly before, they go into 5 games in 7 days and coming off a double overtime game where he's played more than 40 minutes. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but if they were resting him early in the year in 3-game weeks on back-to-backs, something is a bit fishy there. Atlanta do have another back-to-back as well. So they have a back-to-back, like tomorrow is the second game against Detroit. And they also have a back-to-back Friday, Saturday this week moving forward. So he's playing a lot of games in a short amount of time. And I don't want that to scare you. Like at the end of the day, if he's the best option that you can afford, get him because he has been one of the best players this year to own. And I know a few people in the Discord for SC Hub, they've had him all season and they stuck fat with him all season and they've been reaping the rewards the last couple of weeks. But yeah, he's having an insane season. So I wouldn't say no, but buyer beware, DR. There are a few things in the back of my mind that will probably deter me from picking him this week.
It's a great shout because there are so many teams on the 4 this week. You'd hate to trade someone in and they get a 3, wouldn't you? So there's never any guarantees, but you got to look at history, Boz, and what's happened before. So that's a very, very good call there, mate. I'm still potentially going there. You haven't completely scared me off here, but I might look a little bit closer at some of the other options, but that potentially I wasn't going to. Boys, how about some mid prices? So I can see here on the notes, Boz, we've got Watson and Johnson from Denver. So I might get those 2 boys up, mate, if you want to have a chat about Peyton Watson to start off with, mate. Do you think he's worth a shout this week, a break even of 38 for the Nuggets?
Absolutely. So I cheekily put him in at the very, very last minute of the podcast last week for those that kind of stuck around late. And he was very serviceable. So he's obviously a benefactor of injuries at Denver. So there are 2 main guys in the starting lineup that are out, and they're out for at least another 4 weeks each. So, the role and the minutes are there for Peyton Watson. Yes, he's not Jamal Murray, and yes, he's not Nikola Jokic, but we know Jokic, he loves getting his guys involved. And, Payton's put up some really good numbers in some games. And coming into the Denver Nuggets, they've got a 4-2, and then I think it's like 4-4-4-4-4-4. Like it just goes, it's fours for days. So I'm more saying that a Cam Johnson and a Peyton Watson, whilst they haven't set the world on fire, they now have the opportunity. And Cam Johnson has lost so much money already this season because he started the year so poorly. He's probably the one I trust a little bit more just because he's done it before. He's someone that's done it before. He's a very good player, although he is $1 million more expensive. So again, I don't think you can go wrong with either of these guys. They are both the third and fourth option on this Denver team. However, with the amount of money they can still make whilst putting up some really solid points, I think that'd be a really sneaky option to have on your court, like a Ryan Rollins, just to literally put in your court for the next, 6 weeks and get that kind of 70 to maybe even a 90 week when they are playing really, really hot. So two guys at Denver I really like just based around their opportunity due to injury.
Nice call. Now, Verns, I'm going to send this one to you, mate. Shano wants to know, Tyler Hero worth a punt, in your opinion?
Oath. Actually, really funny. I finished my video with Giddy in my team, and I'll be honest, I've already moved Hero in instead. Hero. Look, Hero's obviously a gun. Like, he is so good. Even when he sort of came to the league, like, you could just tell he was going to be really, really good. And he's like, I was never a big NBA watcher previously, but Hero was one of those guys that stood out for me for the few games I'd definitely seen. And he is the heart and soul of Miami. He is their go-to guy. He is the guy that we've been waiting for. Miami have had good fixtures, and we keep looking at them and going, there's no one in Miami, unfortunate, and just kind of keep brushing over them. Now Hero is back. There is somebody in Miami, and he's got a pretty good fixture because Miami have the first 5-game week of the year, and it's not that far off. So if you get him in now, he could be a hold till that 5-game week.
Oh, very nice. So you've got the thumbs up, maybe the double thumbs up there from Verns for that one there, Shano. Now, Aaron wants to know, boys, would you field Flag or Queen? And he also wants to know, is it actually time to trade Queen? So first question, Flag or Queen on field? And then second question, do we look to get rid of him?
I don't think you trade him, personally. Yeah, I think obviously Pelicans have a really good fixture, and he's clearly competent. He just went 80, 100, and yet he got a 50 this week, but he's a rookie. He's going to fluctuate with some of his scores. Also, we just talked about Trey Murphy the third being out. That means there is more opportunity for him, so we want that. As much as obviously it's not a direct role replacement, it just means that one of their biggest scorers or players is out, meaning there's more opportunity for him to be involved. So I think Queen's definitely a hold. You probably want him on field most weeks, but it's really hard to say Queen or Flag. Obviously, Queen went 80 and 100, and you would have loved him those 2 weeks, but then this week you would have loved Flag. So it's hard to tell. I think Queen probably feels more safe, if I had to be honest, between the two, but I think Flag seems like the guy with the upside, where if he just gets it all together for like 4 games straight, I could see him popping out of 120.
Nice. Yeah, it's very true, Vernsy. Boz, your thoughts?
I'm going to disagree and go opposite to that. I do agree that you do not trade Queen. I think he's still got the schedule, so maybe he's made most of his money, but I do think the schedule just allows you, if you do have to play him on your court, a little bit of a safety blanket, or if he's on your bench, it doesn't really matter. However, I'm going to say Flag's a bit more safer, and I'll tell you why. So over the last week, Derek Queen has seen Yiv Missy end up taking his spot. So what is happening is Derek Queen is starting the game, but then Missy is actually taking over. And in 2 of the games, Missy actually started in the second half over Derek Queen. So for whatever reason, the coaches decided, well, you know what, now that Missy's actually playing okay and he's back from injury, because he was out in those couple of weeks that Queen was going bananas, I think they're really now sharing that 20 minutes each per game. We need Queen to be playing 30 minutes a game, which he was the last couple of weeks. Unfortunately, this week, it hasn't been the case. He's only played 20, bit of foul trouble today. But the really concerning thing was it looks to be more of a share at the center/power forward position. And that's only going to get worse when Zion does end up playing all these games. So for me, I think we'll actually start to see a bit of a decline in Queen's minutes, and that'll obviously lead to a decline in production. I do think he does better than this week. I think he had a bit of a down week field goal wise. I think he only shot at like 43% or something. So hopefully he can get up to the mid to high 40s. But it's the minutes that are worrying me to play him confidently on court. I might end up doing it though, because I might have to. But I actually back in Flag over Queen this week.
All right. So couple of options there, mate. But we're all agreeing, don't trade him yet. Keep on to him for now.
Not yet.
Yeah. All right, boys, is there anything else you want to talk about premium trading wise, getting anyone else in, or are we ready to move on to some potential captain options?
Look, I'll quickly just answer Aaron's question. He's got thoughts on Siakam down there. Look, Siakam, I started with him. He was really cool to watch, actually. I really like what he does. And he's obviously like Pacers' best player, very obviously. Problem is Pacers suck. So there's definitely been a few games here where he struggled to get to 20, and that's, games where they're getting blown out, because problem is when you get blown out, your best players aren't playing the biggest minutes, So unfortunately, I think he's still a good option. I think if you wanted to play an Indiana player and you want him, I think he's good enough. He had a good week this week. He had a good week 1 for me. He's been serviceable with it throughout the year without blowing anyone away. So I think there's no problem going there. I'm not going to discourage anyone from doing it. I do think there's other options around it I like better personally, but each to their own.
Beautiful. We do have another one from the great Blue Ballers. How are you, mate? Thanks very much for tuning in. Before we get to the captains, Con or Reed Shepherd on field this week, lads? Love your work. Boz, I'll go to you. Con or Reed Shepherd?
Well, that's very tough. I mean, in hindsight, you play Shepherd this week, don't you, instead of Con? But I think, based purely on consistency, Con has been the more consistent player. Shepherd did benefit from Durant missing 2 games for a personal issue at the start of the week, which I think would have boosted his score. However, the positive thing was I did notice today that Shepherd was still in the starting lineup, although Durant did come back. So if that's something that is happening moving forward for the Rockets, and they're happy to play Shepherd whilst he's on the court and sharing it with Amen Thompson and Durant, I think that's going to really benefit him, playing with the good players, playing with the big dogs, getting him open shots. He's a lights-out shooter. He's a great defender. He steals the ball a lot. So I think at the moment, I'm a safe guy, so I'd probably go back to Con. I just think Con Knupple's proven himself a little bit more. But again, as you saw this week, if you pick the right week to pick the guy with the big ceiling, you never know what could happen. So I think either or are going to be fine options to play on your court this week.
Beautiful. Verns, anything to add there, mate?
No, not at all. I reckon I'm going to go Shepherd over Con, but don't think you can go wrong either way.
Beautiful. Some of these are very, very tough calls, aren't they? Very much 50-50 calls a lot of the time. All right, boys, captains for the week. Is it? I ask it most weeks. Is it that easy? Lock the big one in?
It is that easy. Even if he was to somehow play 3 games, he'll still be in contention for top scoring.
Boz, is there any other thoughts for you this week, or do you think it's silly not to just lock in the Joker?
Yeah, you got to lock the Joker in. Dallas, Indiana, Atlanta, and Charlotte. So some pretty favorable matchups there. There's no reason why he doesn't go massive. He goes massive all the time, but there's no reason why he doesn't continue that trend. I'm looking around for other kind of options here. And Luka has a pretty good week if he does end up playing all 4 games. The one thing that's making me nervous is the fact that Lakers have qualified for the NBA Cup quarterfinals. So it's like, do they rest him in 1? I hope not. I hope he just plays through, but there's a potential there. But they've got like Phoenix, Toronto, who are okay, Boston, who are okay, and Philly. So I do think there's some nice matchups for Luka to do his. And we know that LeBron will rest back-to-backs, and 2 of those, or 1 of those games, 2 of those games, I should say, is a back-to-back. So you expect LeBron to rest 1 of those. So that could be more usage there for Luka. But it's hard. We can say Giannis, but at the same time, are we trusting his injury management load? Probably not. There's no reason to risk anyone else but Jokic when he's on a 4-game week. Because as Vern said, even if he does play 3 games, you're still going to be happy. even if for whatever reason he plays 2, he's probably going to be not far off those blokes that play 3 and even 4 if they have a down game. So, yeah, it's pretty boring, but it has to be Jokic.
Oh, I'm with you, boys. I'm with you. If you look at the average here, 46.2. Luka comes in second, 39.3. So that's almost a 7-point type gap there between first and second. So it's extremely hard to go past him. And our advice has been each and every week, just get him in your side. Find a way to get him in your side, because if you don't have him, you are falling so far behind. It's not funny. So get the great man in your side. Boys, do we want to finish off with any potential trade plans? Look, I must admit, I've still got no idea. I haven't had the time to even think about it yet. Verns, you put your video out already with your trades that you're looking at, and you say it each week. We finish the pod, and all of a sudden, things are looking to shift again.
Oh, look, it's a very hard week, though. We've talked about the options that you have. Like, the more time you have to look at it, the more you play around with it, the more players kind of find their way into your team. I think for me personally, something that's super important for everyone is obviously round 8. As much as it's a 3-game week, we sort of talked about everyone having a 4-3-3 or a 4-2-4. You still need to make sure that you've balanced it. And as I sort of mentioned, you want probably 4 at least on the 3, I would say, in the round 8, and then you can trade at least 3 of those out. If you want to boost for a 4th out, you can do that. You don't want to leave yourself in a position where you're just fielding 2 all week. I mean, you can tank just 1 week straight up, but I feel like that just seems unnecessary. We have unlimited trades. Trade these players in. Make sure you stay on top of it. Me personally, I plan on bringing in, as I mentioned, someone like a hero. I was also looking at a Johnson. Just if I go down to a hero who's like 4 mil less, it gives more money to play with the rookies, which is a lot nicer. And I don't have to get some of these sort of questionable rookies that we talked about. I can look at these a little bit more, these ones that I've had a little bit of a price rise already, these ones that we have a little bit more faith in, and I feel a bit more comfortable with them. So that's sort of what I'm planning on doing. And I do think what that'll allow me to do is when we do hit next week, because I already have, I think, 3 or 4 guys set up for next week, I'll be able to just sort of trade rookies. I'll just be able to look at the guys with the break evens. I'll just be able to move these guys around. Maybe the guys that are sitting on your bench that are making money, but you don't trust them on field. And I'll be able to actually move them down, put some money in my back pocket, and then get an upgrade the following week. Or at least that's the plan.
Cheers, mate. Love your thinking, mate. Love your thinking. Boz, finish off with you, mate. Have you sort of finalised your trades yet? Or have you got a rough idea about what you're looking to do? Or is the shop just that big this week that the stars are in your eyes and you just don't know what to do?
Yeah, the shop is open. However, I do have an allowance, as one would say. So I'm looking. I think I want to get Denny Advia back. And I knew I was trading him out when I probably shouldn't have, but I did want to do that to make sure I could get 2 premiums this week. Hence the Cade and the Cat trade in. Hindsight, I trade Donovan Mitchell instead, and I keep Denny, and I get a better score. But that it is what it is. I kind of want to get Denny back because I still think he's very undervalued. I still think he's going to be one of the top 2 guys in Portland. I know they got some injuries, but he's doing a hell of a lot. And there was an interview today that he basically got asked about his workload because they were saying, you're playing massive minutes because you're pretty much the only guy that hasn't been injured yet. And are you going to rest? And he goes, no. He's like, I'm young enough to play every game. I back in the such a supportive staff we have in terms of the physios, the masseuses, and the S&C coaches at Portland. And he's just like, I'm just loving playing as much basketball as I can and getting better and better every day. So don't quote me on this, but I don't think a rest is coming for Denny. And they go into such a really nice schedule moving forward. So not only is it a nice play for this week, I think it's a really nice play for that kind of week 9 onwards where they go into, I think, a consistent 3 or 4 game weeks in a row. And as I said, I've just been loving watching him. And as I touched on at the start of us doing these podcasts, it's okay to pick guys you like. It's actually like so much funner when you are watching games with players that you enjoy watching. And for me, Denny's been my number 1 guy this year. I own him in other fantasy kind of formats, like the year-long fantasy and the dynasty fantasy that I play with my mates outside of this. So he's just been the guy that I'm just obsessed with watching. So he's coming in. I'll get Jay Huff probably as well. I was playing around before. Yep. I wanted to get one of the Denver guys. I want that kind of security on the court as well, long term. At the moment, I can't afford them. I'm like $500,000 short on Peyton Watson and $1.5 million short on Cam Johnson. So I might have to do a few tweaks here and there between now and then. But yeah, ideally it's definitely Denny and it's definitely Jay Huff, and it's that third spot I'm umming and ahhing on what to do there.
Very, very nice. You're not tempted to use a boost to ensure you can get one of the Denver blokes in. You're staying, responsible here.
Yeah, I'm trying to stay responsible. And to be honest, you're probably right in saying that there's not many rookies at the moment. We've spoken about it in the past. There's not many 3.5 million guys that are going to just be popping out of this at the moment. That's more probably late in the season when teams start to tank. So it probably would be smart to get someone in that I trust that's not only going to score well but make money. But I really want to save these boosts and try to really attack the middle to end of the season with them. So I might bite my tongue again on that one.
Yeah, saying that, I mean, depending on your team comp, it could be a little awkward. I know personally, I just looked at getting in like a Peyton Watson or a Johnson, which I can get Watson, can't get Johnson. But then it's like, I probably can't even field them though, unless I want to field them over Flag, which is an option. But if you already have Flag on field, is it worth paying that much up for someone that's going to sit on your bench?
No way. Yeah, it's only, as you said, team kind of specific if you're really desperate for another player in that small forward, power forward type area.
Beautiful. Boys, is there anything else that you wanted to discuss before we let our beautiful community go for the week?
No, I reckon we covered it. Ripping pod.
Always is with you two. Always is. I say it each and every week, but your knowledge and passion for the game is absolutely second to none, boys. And great stuff with the NBL as well. We've always had a bit of a break from the NBL for last week as well, but back on the GDS board there. The cup's going on there as well. So super exciting over in GDS land as well. But guys, thank you very, very much for tuning in. Hopefully you enjoyed the live. We're doing it this way just to get a bit more interaction from the community. And more than anything, just making sure it can get uploaded as quick as possible because there's an extremely short turnaround with these weeks in NBA. And that's why it's even more impressive that these blokes have all the notes, the info, and all the good oil to give all of you that are tuning in. So, boys, cannot thank you enough as always. Community, cannot thank you enough again. I put out a sneaky AFL Supercoach video just on some DPP the other day, just to whet the appetite a little bit. It is coming up. It is coming up in December. We've also got our BBL Supercoach coming up. Scobes and JG are going to be smashing out the content. I'll be joining them for a potty. I think it might be tomorrow night, the night after. I'll let you know, but stay tuned for more BBL content. Obviously, the GDS NBL stuff with these two guys. It's all coming to you from the Swordplay crew. So thanks again, guys, for tuning in. Much love. We'll see you soon in the next one. Good luck this week. Cheers, boys.